Hi, I'm Paul, and this time on Insidebikes we are riding a modern reinvention of a classic. We're riding a Honda Super Cub. Now this is a really difficult one to review because I'm a big fan of the Super Cub. I owned a C90 myself and it is an absolute legend. Honda have sold more than, wait for it, 100 million Cubs since the first C100 Super Cub was introduced back in 1958. That's a lot of vehicles, and just like things like the Mini and the Beetle and the Fiat 500, they've decided they want to keep it alive and take it to a new audience. And that's what we've got here. So the Cub has been in constant production over those years, although we did lose it in Europe for a little while. But they brought back the C125, which is the version we're riding, in 2018. And actually for this year, they've given a little bit of an update, including things like the pillion seat as standard. So we decided to take one and see what it's all about. There's probably two ways that you can review this bike. You can put those rose-tinted spectacles on and you can look at it as a Cub, or you can put your sensible head on and look at it as a 125 commuter scooter. Now I love my Cub. I didn't do many miles on it, but it was great fun to ride. I'd ride it to the office every now and again. I had it on a multi-bike policy and I'd trot it out every now and again. It was pretty terrifying though, it has to be said. The semi-automatic gearbox was a little bit weird, the brakes were pretty dreadful, and the suspension, it used to rise up as you go into the corners. It was very, very strange. But for all that, I loved it, and there's a whole Cub culture of people who absolutely adore Honda Cubs. So you can see what Honda have had to do with this bike, as they've had to remain as true as possible to the Cub brand. And that perhaps has compromised the way that they've gone about it. But you look at it, and although it's a modern bike, a modern interpretation, it is absolutely lavished with Honda Super Cub cues all over. The shape, the style, everything screams Super Cub. It's got 17-inch wheels. Again, that was one of the original design briefs that wanted big wheels to be stable when it was used as a little commuter bike. But this time they've gone and swapped spoked wheels out for cast wheels. That shape is undeniably Cub. The leg shields, again, very much a Honda Cub thing. And this seat is how they used to make them in the 1950s bike. They swapped to a bench later, but this is how they were then. But all over, it's just full of little cues. The gear lever, for example, it's slightly strange when you ride it in modern terms, but it's got that fore and aft system where you push down with your toe to go up the gears and down with your heel to go down through the gears. Legend has it that that is because so you could wear some smart shoes when you're commuting on your Super Cub. And actually Honda do classify this as a motorcycle. It's not a scooter. It doesn't have a lot of the things that a scooter would have. It is in some ways quite compromised as a modern design by staying so true to the Cub philosophy. You've got the engine. It makes about 10 horsepower. It's air-cooled, 2-valve engine, quite basic, and it's in the style of those Cubs from back in the day. You look at the engine cases, it looks like a Honda Cub. It's got that gearbox. It's a semi-automatic gearbox or an automatic clutch gearbox. So there is no lever on the left-hand side to change gears. You just literally push it and it activates the clutch. Again, there's a myth that goes around that when Honda first introduced the Cub, it was a compulsory part of the design brief that there was no levers on the left-hand side. So delivery drivers could actually ride single-handed while they were riding the Cub. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but they've stuck true to that. Elsewhere, you've got stuff, the enclosed chain, again it's Cub. And again, they've remained true to the Super Cub philosophy. So you've got a fuel tank under the seat, but it's only 3.7 litres, so that is a diddy little fuel tank. And when I've been riding it, I found that it's been flashing with about 60, 70 miles on the clock. So you will have to stop up for fuel on a reasonably regular basis. As a former Cub owner, it does things that remind me of the bike I had in the past. Those mirrors, they look authentic, and they're great if you want to see your elbows. They're not that fantastic if you want to see the road behind you, but you know what? That's how I remember my C90 being. The gear change, again, it kind of just reminds me of the bike I had back in the day. The ergonomics, the seat. I imagine if you're a taller rider, it's probably not the most comfortable or practical seat, but it's true to the philosophy. And I think that's what Honda's designers have had to do. You know, Honda makes some amazing 125s. They've got the PCX 125 scooter, they've got the Grom, they make brilliant 125s, and this feels a little bit indulgent from Honda, like they're just trying to keep their most famous model alive, but they've done it really, really, really well. My old C90 used to struggle to top 40 miles an hour. This, it gets away from the lights really briskly, and it will sit at 60. I actually say about 65 on the clock. So it's quick enough for modern day traffic. It's got a keyless ignition. Now, we have a lot of debates as to whether or not we like keyless ignitions, and I got to admit, on some bikes, I'm not a massive fan, but it works really, really well with this. It's great to have a commuter bike that you can just stick it in your pocket, and if you're in proximity of it, you can switch it on, fire it up, works really well. And when it's switched on, you can also release the seat, and there's a really hidden little button under there to open the seat up and get into the fuel tank. So there's a lot of romance around this bike, and it puts a real smile on my face as someone who does like Cubs. The downside is if you put your practical head on, you've got to wonder if someone would design a motorcycle like this if they were using a blank sheet of paper. Scooters are better, motorcycles are better in so many ways. One of the downsides is that there's no meaningful storage space on this. You know, as a commuter bike, you'd like it to have a top box and/or, you know, some kind of underseat storage. There's nothing here. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny little flap under there which you can release, and it contains a toolkit. I suppose you could take that out and you could put a pair of socks in there or something. You know, there's no USB charger to allow you to plug in your phone to use as a navigation device. It is a little bit compromised as a day-to-day commuter. What else is modern on this bike is this matte grey paintwork, which I quite like, although I've got to be honest, when they reintroduced it in 2018, I probably did prefer the more classic blue and white and red and white combinations they did, but I think this is really smart. And it's a Honda. It is built to an incredibly high standard, and you do feel that this is kind of Honda's baby, and they've lavished a lot of love on it. Honda's designers probably won't like me saying this, but personally I'd have loved to have seen this with a CVT transmission on it, fully automatic twist and go. I think it would have made it easier to ride in today's traffic. I'd have preferred to have some kind of storage on it, but overall you can see what they've done. It's £3,499, so it's a reasonably priced piece of kit. It's kind of in line with other 125s that are out there. It's cheap to run, you know, okay, you've got quite a small fuel tank, but Honda are claiming about 180 miles to gallon on it. I'm looking at more like 100 in the time I've spent with it, but it's been good fun to ride. You know, those bigger wheels, I maybe feel a little bit skittish on the open road, but it's about riding around town. I can see me having one of these on the back of a motorhome, cruising around the south of France, whipping this off and going around the coast. It really is a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that Honda have decided to keep this iconic model alive, and it deserves a place in the Honda range. If you want to know more about this bike, we've got a full review on Insidebikes. Follow the link below, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.